So yeah, there was our countdown. Well, hey folks, beautiful evening here in Michigan. Yeah, a little change of pace. We are on the meltdown and sort of. We're still getting precipitation. Got ourselves a good tenth of an inch of ice. Not enough to really impede on any daily activity other than, yeah, off of school today. I don't know.
Did you
Didn't want to
know you
put.
didn't have school today?
We didn't have school today.
Oh,
Did
must be
other?
nice.
Yeah. Did Lowell have school?
My daughter's homeschooled, so she doesn't even understand the beauty
She doesn't understand the
of a
beauty
snow
of
day.
staying home for a day.
So
Yeah,
lame,
no, we
man.
went
Home such a
Monday,
lame
and
parent.
yeah, we had a couple days off with the big dump and the frigid temps, and then today was ice. But it wasn't as fun of a snow day. I will tell you, we'd had a little bit of an adventure. Um, Kids were going to go to the cousins, and it's merely just a walk through the woods to go to the cousins. And my dog went out with me. The one dog that we've got, he ended up bagging a squirrel. He grabbed a squirrel that was just on the ground doing its thing, brings it to us, and I think the thing's dead at this point. I grab hold of the tail, and that thing turned around and looked right at me. And I'm like, oh dang, we have now got a squirrel who's feeling the fight or flight, and I don't know which direction he wants to go. The boys were all huddled up. The dog was there. There was just a lot that could have happened. Um, the squirrel did grab hold of my Carhartts, and I tell you what, those things are little bodybuilders.
Yeah.
When they grab onto something. I mean, shoot, their life hangs in the balance when they're climbing trees. So this little sucker's got grip. I yanked him off my uh, Carhartts, and there was a small sapling tree, and I tried to cuff his head and smack him on that thing. It took a couple cuffs for him to finally expire.
You get him though? You put him down?
I put him down. He's
Nice.
gone. So there was the thought of like, well, hey, did we just bag a squirrel with the family pet? I figure that's gonna be an awesome kudo. But the dog was relentless in his pursuit. He was not going to share. He was proud of that one. I set it
He
down
earned it.
for a mere like couple minutes, and the dog laid claim. It is somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it is somewhere in the woods. Yeah, Bo has got his trophy and in his trophy spot. So, but anyway, that was our
That's funny.
excitement.
I Squirrels are very tough, and I'm sorry to jump and knock this all off course, but like I have now twice in my life. This fall was the second time been out in the woods, and I've just seen a squirrel. I'll just be looking, and you just see it's off, falls out of a tree, right? And so all of a sudden you'll just hear just
Thud.
falls right on the forest floor. And what I learned, I'm like, holy cow, that thing has to be dead. And right, like it shakes itself up and takes off. But like, given their weight to mass ratio or something like that, they don't fall fast enough to like, you know, crush their bones. And I don't remember how far you can
Wow.
technically like drop a squirrel and it won't die.
That is very interesting. Like, is that like with wood ducks, like the ducklings when they kick them out? They literally
Yeah,
flop out of a
exactly.
tree. They weigh nothing. I mean,
Yep.
the fluff on the ground will have enough, or their body just slows down enough that they don't
Yeah,
even.
I've not, I actually think Jared has the same thing. I've seen him fall out of trees before and like never broken a bone. He just kind of bounces and like pops right back up. So I think there's a weight to mass ratio there. He's got a lot of mass and just not enough weight behind it, I guess.
Gotcha. Well, hey, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we are on tonight with James Zandstra of the Fair Chase podcast. Thank you so much, James, for coming on. I love our little tangent with the small game there. What has your winter been like since the new year? Have you had a chance to get out and pursue anything, or have you been buckled down with the beginning of the year, goal setting, either with your show or even just day to day with work? What has been the start of year 24 been like?
So, yeah, I mean, I've been out doing a little bit of just kind of half scouting, half like I'll do like a training program for whatever. It's like a hunting specific training program. It's like a lot of it will have like ruck type movement. So you load weight in a backpack, and that's, a couple of the days. So I'll like double that up as like a scouting trip or just like checking out new spots, kind of where I like to hunt, one of the areas that I like to hunt. So I like to just, this time of year try to stack up more spots that I could maybe check out and again in the spring and then potentially hunt in the fall. Lots of planning, planning just projects for the new year, getting kind of partnerships going there. So on the fair chase and the hunting stuff side, a little bit of everything. Getting bows set up now. We always end up with some sort of new bow in hand, and so getting that going, shooting that a bit. So yeah, just kind of a little bit of everything at this point.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, just a grab bag of whatever's available and what seems to be there in front of you. You just take care of. That's good. That's
As long
good.
as it has to do with hunting, like I just want to do that. So like if it's as long as it's remotely related, like I'll probably, at one point in the day be doing it. So yeah, whatever it is, I don't really care.
Absolutely. Well, the reason I have you on tonight is, yeah, for us to catch up, but at the same time, you had an epic adventure in 23 where you had
Yeah.
the opportunity to head up to Alaska and do a bucket list adventure. We've talked about moose before, but you actually had a chance to go after a moose in British Columbia. Give us
Yeah.
the 10,000-foot view of what it took to get up there and actually get on that moose.
Yeah, so moose was on my radar going into that year. Was planning on this fall, the fall of 24, to head to Newfoundland to do a moose hunt there. Got a good referral to a place and got a deposit down. By the way, my deposit's still good, so if you are looking to go moose hunting, I've got they'll honor it for
Oh,
any
man.
friends and family that I send in their way. So
Oh,
Nick, there's
man.
no excuses, man. I got you covered. We'll talk after the show.
Absolutely.
But planning on that, and then planning on probably just doing like a cow elk hunt with Joe and I out in Montana, and so getting ready for that. Got a last minute call from Worldwide Trophy Adventures, or WTA, kind of like a hunting. It's like a booking agency almost. They do a lot of figuring for you, so help you
Mm.
with travel details and everything else. It's really a sweet deal. So, anyways, they called me. They
When
said,
you're
"Hey, we've
when
got
you're
this."
going WTF, that you call WTA.
WTA, yeah, exactly. It's actually more of a good thing than the WTF.
Yeah.
Um, and so I get a call from them, and they're like, "Hey, we got this cancellation hunt for British Columbia. Are you interested?" And I thought they were talking about the following fall, so I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm in." They're like, "Oh, it's 23," so I was like, "Oh boy," so that's 3 weeks away. I should probably have a conversation with my wife, make sure that's fine. And we were planning on filming it. So it's like, all right, now I have to call my camera guy and, I do this to him a lot lately where it's like a last minute, like, hey, how do you feel about, and then you just drop some bomb on him, right? And so this spring we did it to him for like a bear hunt in Alaska. And now this fall I was like, hey, how do you feel about going away for like, I think we were gone 13 days, something like that. How do you feel
Oh my
about spending
goodness.
some time away from your family and filming me in British Columbia? And he was in, which he's such a cool guy. Not a hunter by like, his no hunting history, but he's just game. So I love him for that. Just always down to learn new things. And so it's just, I like people like that. It's tough. So anyways, so he was in. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, the details WTA really manages pretty well, but how do I get the meat home? I had known, going hunting in places like Alaska, they'll have these, I want to say it's called Alaska Trophy Express or something like that, where you'll pay them, they'll load your meat on and your cape and your skull or whatever you decide to keep on a semi truck that's refrigerated. And in October, after hunting season's kind of done in Alaska, they'll travel the continental United States and you meet them in certain cities along the way.
Oh,
So I was
okay.
like, sweet, I'm gonna find that for British Columbia because the moose is a big thing, and I'm not going out there and not bringing meat home.
Right.
Otherwise, I feel like I couldn't even look at you in the eye, Nick, and tell you I didn't bring some moose meat home. I would have felt
I
wrong.
was gonna, I would, yeah, there would be some definite hostilities. I would look down
Yeah,
a little bit upon
yeah.
James, but
I
no,
can't have
you
that in my
won.
life, right? So that was, I mean, so 3 weeks ago, I was scrambling, right? I am. How do I get as much meat home as possible? Can't really do one of those shipping services because it's across the border of Canada. Not cool with that. Tried looking into flying with it, and you can make that work. You can freeze some of it, and you technically, I guess, could just check the whole moose. It's pretty expensive, and so I was initially planning on going that route and just taking as much, couple 100 pounds of meat or whatever I could try to figure out to get on the plane.
Yeah.
Layovers were tricky with that, with the only flight that I had available three weeks ahead. So I went ahead and bought the flights, and then got thinking like, man, there's got to be a better way. And ended up talking to a buddy of ours. His name's Christian Schaff, who owns kind of a survival company, and he's like, hey, I drove from Montana to British Columbia. I think Montana, wherever he lives out west to British Columbia. He's like, it was a long drive, but I was able to bring the meat home. So I started talking to him and formulated kind of a plan to drive from the Grand Rapids, Michigan area in Michigan to British Columbia. So that's what we did, so we could bring everything back with us, and kind of get as much meat as we could back home.
Wow. So in this 3 week window, we now are on pretty much heading. I mean, you got a head start, but we're looking to going across the North American continent
Yeah,
from Michigan all the way to British Columbia with the idea. So you're not going to take a smart cart. You're not going to take a Prius. We need something with
yeah,
enough heft that can haul upwards of
yeah.
shoot, 500-600 pounds of meat at this point.
Hmm.
Man, what was that trip like? So, vehicle you took, and
Yeah.
how, what was the game plan for putting this together?
So here's the game plan, right? So right before I left, of course, my car died. Not that I could have taken it. Anyways, it was a Honda CRV at 2005. And so I wasn't taking that anyways, and didn't have a truck. Thankfully, I've got a brother who had a Dodge Ram. So it was a 2018 comfortable truck. And what I did was it had the Ram box. It was a little smaller in the trunk, the bed of the truck, and I threw a chest freezer in the back, and I brought along a generator. So the idea was, while I was driving, I would run the generator on the way back. So I'd get there, I'd plug the freezer in. On the way back, I would run it off the generator while we drove, and then when we stopped at hotels, I would plug it in the outside. There's always outlets and hotels, and so, I mean, we loaded up, and it was technically it's a 47-hour drive, and you stop overnight, and you get hung up and stuff. So yeah, I mean, roughly 50 hours of driving each way. So it was a
Oh my
long,
goodness.
long drive. But I was kind of prepared. That spring or early summer of that year, my wife, my daughter, and I actually drove to Newfoundland, so kind of the other opposite coast of Canada, and so that was a 30 some hour drive doing that. So I was a little bit warmed up. We do a lot of driving. It's not so bad. I don't mind it as much. If you had Jared or Joe from our team here, they are like driving averse, and they give me like the hardest time for anytime we are going on a hunt. I'm always like, well, we could drive, we could bring all our stuff and stop whenever we want. And they're like, well, we could be there in 4 hours, why would we. So I usually lose that battle, but I don't mind driving. It was a long drive, and me and my camera guy split it up pretty well, so it went pretty well.
Good deal. Good deal. So yeah, we got a pickup truck going. We've got
Yeah.
chest freezer, full 8 foot chest freezer, or what cubic size
This
was it?
was So I have the big dog at my
Yeah.
house. Couldn't fit that in, and so I used my brother's, who got it from my grandma when she moved out of her house. and that has to be a 5 or 6 footer, like
Gotcha.
hardly. I think a 5 footer maybe, something like that. Not a giant,
Yeah,
but not a small one. Like a
gotcha. Right in that
good
midway.
one.
Yeah, probably a 6 footer. But man,
Yeah.
so that was the idea. Get the moose inside the 6 footer, at least get him broken down, like the quarters at that point. Um,
Hmm.
Going in, were you already anticipating this is going to have to be boneless, or could you could you take bone in quarters and stick those in there, or was it one of those? I don't know the regulations coming from Canada
Yeah.
to the United States. Was that a full bone out of that? Gonna have to be a bone out of that animal.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to take some bones back to do broth and different things with. And I actually kicked myself. I wanted to do some cooking with the marrow while we were out there, but with just the chaos of the hunt and it was raining and we were in a swamp, whatever. Didn't end up getting to do that. And so we really we boned it out really by necessity for where it died, for how far from the river it died. So just getting the logistics of getting the meat from kill site to camp it's just complicated, and so
Yeah,
yeah, we boned it out really in the field. So yeah, I would have loved to have more bone with me, but I kind of imagined I wouldn't bring it home just so I can maximize how much we fit in the freezer.
gotcha. So yeah, we get to the hunt, and you were just leading up a little bit of it. Right there is that when you went for this bull elk, was it as much of a chess match where you guys came in for, like, you guys went in for it, but then at the same time you called to have him come back? There was this ebb and
Yeah,
flow. You found yourself pretty much a ways away from, and you mentioned the river. You're miles
yeah,
away from this river that was essentially going to be your highway. This was going to be your way out.
yeah, yeah.
How'd that
So
hunt go?
yeah, basically what you do is you hop on like a boat that they kind of build out to be able to just smash rocks. Like it looks like almost like a flat bottom like a John boat, but they'll throw like Teflon or whatever the stuff is underneath the boat. This they actually
Oh,
specially had this boat built for this. Just trips up the river because it beats the crap out of stuff. And so you get in, you are in that boat, and in the morning you walk. Well, you hike. We hiked probably between a quarter and a half mile to the boat from camp because we couldn't get it down to where we were because of rocks and stuff in the water. We'd take that up 45 minutes at least, over an hour of cruising upstream, just, miles and miles, and, in the most beavers I've ever seen. Anyway, so we get up there, you get to basically a meadow that you want to look over, and we would climb up a mountain and just glass all day. I mean, it's like I don't know if you're mule deer hunting or if you're bear hunting in the spring. It's very similar. It's just like you go and you glass and wait for them to come out. So we were earlier. We were the first group that they took that year. So right leading up to the rut, and so with the first couple days it was a little slow. We saw some moose. Actually, the first boat ride up to our spot, we were in the boat for 20 minutes, and we come around a corner, and there's a 40-inch moose standing in the middle of the river. And so like I'm going in, and I've been very clear with my guide at this point, like I'm not picky.
yeah.
I know most of your clientele are pretty picky. I like to kill things and I like to eat things. So like I want to I'm here. Let's do it. So I see this moose, and I'm like looking back, like, can I, should I cut the motor? Because for there, you can shoot from a boat if the motor's off. And
Okay.
he's just like, doesn't even seem fazed by it. So anyways, I'm like, all right. So we go upstream, and, we spend a couple days, you go up, you glass, saw some decent little bulls. Like we saw one, like a little bullwinkle bull, real small, but paddles, kind of cool. And we watched this one that was a decent width. One side was paddled, and one side was kind of a branch antler.
Oh,
And
wow.
so these are, yeah, it was beautiful, beautiful animals. These are Canadian moose, by the way. There's bigger Yukon ones that'll get 60, even the 70-inch range, and the Canadian moose will top out. I mean, they'll get into the 60s, but we were looking for something in probably the 50-inch range. So kind of saw that, kind of were just observing for the first few days, and you're glassing just all day, and then you go to sleep at night. Um, Finally, we go out one morning, and the winds shift, and it brings in all that fire, that smoke from those forest fires in British Columbia this summer, and
Okay.
everything is like orange color, right? So it's like the pressure changes. It's foggy. Like I'm like it actually was. I was like coughing from it. Like it just was thick in the air. But the guide's like, hey, tomorrow it's going to be raining all night tonight. Temperatures are going to drop. They're not going to be moving around at night. I think tomorrow could be something special. That was September 10. And so going into September 11th, it's like, he's like, I think the rut is going to start kicking on. And we kind of knew it was coming because you'd see moose kind of like these bulls step out into the meadow. And eventually we saw the one I would go on to shoot, this big moose come out, and he would just like stand there and like just stare, like almost like nothing is going on, like he's on screensaver mode.
Yeah.
And my guide was saying like, yeah, they, this is pretty common. They'll act like this when their hormones are changing and they're looking to, really kind of jump into the rut. Things are changing in their bodies. And so that next day we get up, and normally we'd go pretty high. It would take, half an hour at least just to hike up this mountain, get to this spot to glass down over the river into a valley. One of the just more beautiful places I've ever been. And along the way up, we're like, hey, let's stop part way up. You can't see as far, but like we got out extra early. It just looks like money out right now. Let's just see what we see. So we go up there, and sure enough, we see that little paddled antler moose kind of moving actually now, like moving through the meadow, and so we're like, okay, that's a good sign, let's wait and see what happens. And sure enough, I'm looking around, and with my naked eye, I see the bigger bull that we ended up going after. And what's kind of funny about those bulls like that, especially when it's like rainy and everything's kind of shiny, any light reflects off these, like it reflects off their antlers so well. It's like a spotlight almost. And so all of a
Wow.
sudden it's like, oh, obviously there's the bull. And
And
so
at the
we're,
same time, their pelt is super dark, especially
yeah,
like
yeah,
just from what I've seen, like so that contrast automatically, like this super dark spot with these
yeah.
spotlights hitting you.
It's very, yeah, 100%. You see it and it's like, dang. All right, so let's think about going after it. And we were running up into some obstacles because, like, one, you're up that high and you're looking over a swamp, and from up there it looks like everything's like shin deep, like grass, and like I don't know, maybe the willows are like knee deep or waist deep, and you go up there and like the ones that are shin deep are like at least waist high, and you're sunken in the mud, and like willows are over your head. So like to sneak in on a bull, it's not like you can just quietly get in and like get really close to it. You got to get in, find some sort of opening that you can shoot into, and try to call them into you. And so we had kind of tested that on a bull we had seen a couple days earlier. And it's like, man, are these bulls call shy? Are they responsive to calls? We had done a little bit of calling up to that point and not really seen much reaction at that point. It was interesting. My guide was telling me he had seen wolves in this area mimic moose calls, and
Oh my
literal like
goodness.
wolves calling to moose to bring him in. Yeah, he's like, actually, they're a little call shy. I've seen, actually these wolves doing that in this area, which I was excited for because I had actually a wolf tag too, and would have been like thrilled, absolutely thrilled to shoot a wolf. But anyway, so we're thinking about all this, and finally we're like, all right, let's just go in. My guide was feeling confident, and I was like, from the beginning, I kept telling him, I'm like, I don't have an ego. Whatever you say, I'm just gonna do it. You do this all the time, and I figure
Right.
if I just
Who am
listen
I
to
to
you and
question you?
learn from you, exactly. I'm just like, whatever you say, I'm gonna do. And he's like, I'm feeling confident. Like, all right, let's get in there. So we're working our way through, and it's taken forever. We got a camera guy with two cameras. He's got a tripod, and we're trying to be quiet, and it's raining. And we come out, and we're calling as we go. And what had happened is that little bull that we had seen kind of moving around, it had heard us and must have thought we were a cow that it knew about back in the timber. So what it did was we saw it run past us and rounds up this other cow, and another bull, like another little bull, shows up, and they're just chasing this cow right in front of us. And so I'm like, we're working away, and I'm like, dang it, all right, this is sweet. Like
Yeah,
this is awesome
action is
action. Whether
happening.
we, yeah, it's so cool. So we're working our way, and we kind of turn in the willows. These willows are just like, for anybody who doesn't know, it's like if you go in a swamp, if you're like a Michigan guy and you go and look into the swamp and you see all those sticks and stuff in there, it's like kind of like that. Like there's these willows in Alaska. Anyways, we come around the corner, and like 75 yards away ish is that branch antlered on one side, pedal on the other side bull, and he hears us and he starts calling back. So you get that we're letting out the, and so he's calling back. You hear the right, and so my eyes, I had to bend like why? Because this is like, as a kid, I've dreamt about like this interaction with a moose, like
Right.
calling back, doing the whole thing. And so, man, I'm looking at him like, we're not going to shoot him. He's a wide bull, but he's not exactly what we're looking for. And this is a spot that's kind of a new area that they have to hunt, a new concession for this group. And so it's supposed to be good. And I'm just going to do what he says. We're going to let this guy chill out for a bit. And so we're watching him, and he's calling back. I'm like, man, that blows. I don't know where that big moose went. He must have just, who knows what he did.
Hmm.
Sure enough, like I look and I just start to see the tip of his horns, his antlers coming over the willows, and just almost like it reminded me of Jurassic Park or something. Like something's just kind of giant is working their way through these willows, and it's like, holy cow, throw up my sticks and kind of wait, and he pops out. I'll never forget it. He kind of comes out, and all of a sudden he's just right there. And his chest, I mean, he's rutted. At this point, he's hearing that other bull, and that's actually what I think called him in. The other bull calling to us, and he's kind of looking to fight. His neck is huge. His chest, there's an image in my mind that is like burned in there of just this giant chested moose. He comes out and he's just looking. And I got my crosshairs right on him. And I was looking actually to he's mostly dead on straight to me, a little bit off to the side a little bit. And so I'm like, I think I can kind of angle a bullet front and kind of come out the back. I shoot a 300 Win Mag, so I felt fairly confident that's enough gun for that, and it was 100 yards. So
Hmm.
it's like, I don't want to shoot it, but I know, and like one of my kind of hunting philosophies is like, if you got a shot, and like don't hesitate. I've made that mistake before, so I went in like, if I've got a shot, this is a big target. I got a big gun. I'm steady, I'm on sticks, and I'm not shaking too bad. I'm just dialed in. And so I'm like, all right, I think I'm going to wait. I don't know, maybe not. And all of a sudden he kind of does like a little twitch with his neck. And like, I think it's the whitetail hunter in me where like I'm used to animals getting real jittery, and then it just makes me like, all right, I don't want to mess around anymore. Like I'm taking a shot. So he twitches. I'm just said something to the guide like, I'm clear to shoot. Yeah. So popped off a shot, and like, I mean, it drilled him, and he drops right there, like not moving. So I'm like, holy cow, I
Yeah.
have earphones in. I got some damage in my left ear. So my left ear is very sensitive to just gunshot noise anyways. And it's, I don't hear too well out of it. So I pull it out, and I'm like, holy cow, and my guide's like, rack another one. And, I'm so stunned I didn't even think to do like the simple thing of just racking another shell when you're shooting a 1,200-pound animal, right? So he's gone. All of a sudden, this thing gets up like nothing happened. He literally got shot and is not moving in the swamp. He gets up, and I'm like, dang it, all right. I forget to put my headphones in for the second shot, shoot again, and he kind of, I think it missed him. I think I was shooting through brush on that second one. I don't know what happened to it. And then he takes another step, and I shot him again. I'm pretty sure only 2 confirmed hits, and that one dropped him like a ton of bricks, dead right there. Didn't move again. So
Yeah.
all that happened in a matter of like 5 seconds, not even. But it felt like
Two
it was like a
breaths. Yeah.
30-minute ordeal.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Wow. And at that point too, just elation, walking up
yeah,
on a literal, like you just said a little bit, like Jurassic Park. You're walking up on this giant that's just laying there. Moment that you
yeah.
put your hands on it, what was that like?
It was just unreal. It was just kind of a surreal thing because, like, as a kid, I was big into like hunting magazines, and like I was big into hunting, right? And I thought about it a lot, and I had all these books, and North American Whitetail subscription and Outdoor Life and all of these reading all these things and seeing. And so I always thought like I would love to do that. There's no way in my life that I would ever this will ever happen, And so you walk up and it's like you think that's going on in your mind, but like the thing I just couldn't like the biggest feeling I had was this is such a giant animal that is like what do I do with this thing now? It's so big.
Right.
It's like a bigger horse. It's like a big round horse, and his antlers are huge. His head, I could hardly like. It's hard to move his head. It's so big. So it's more like just like, I mean, you're in awe and stunned, but it's also like what, like a bunch of moose hunters that I've talked to since and before. I've said like the common adage is like now the real work begins because it's like getting that freaking moose out of there. You have to cut it up in the swamp in knee deep water and try to keep things clean and.
Yeah, there's no moving it to a
it.
dry spot.
No.
It is literal just that. When you shot it, that is now.
That's where it goes.
Butcher site. That's
way
the
worse for the guy that was so we shared camp with another guy and he shot one I think like 45 minutes earlier than us. We didn't hear each other. We were too far away, but the one he shot died in like a lake. So like it was like dead in like 5 foot of water. And like that, I mean, you have to kind of cut it up. And so they're soaked, they're cutting it up in there. So mine wasn't that bad. But I mean, they just, wherever they die, that's where you work on them.
Oh my goodness. Gutless method, or was it more or less take off the quarters, kind of get the gut out of him, deal with the saddle and the rib cage in a little bit? What was your approach to as you got through that hide?
Yeah, we like quartered them first, peeled it back, cut off the legs, and then you cut them off at the elbow or whatever knee joints, and just whatever you can do to trim any unnecessary weight off, and boned him out there. Actually skinned the head. I did a Euro mount on him, big Euro mount guy. I got a lot of people gave me a hard time about not getting a full moose mount. Oh, I'm surprised the strong feelings people have about it. But I don't think I have anything taxidermied from me in my house. There's a couple things that I would, and I've got some pelts and stuff. But anyways, so skinned his head, got his heart, which I think I dropped somewhere.
Man.
I saved it and I was so excited. No, I didn't. No, that was a deer. No, I did save his heart and I actually have it in the freezer. I literally have, I'm so dumb. I have 4 different steak packages of heart. Like the heart is like a 2-pound thing or something like that. It's heavy. Yeah. It's big. So we got all the parts out, bunch of trips and everything else, got it back to camp and hung up. We were there. It was near the tail end of our trip. And so the plan was to try to get the plane out to us earlier. It was a float plane. So we were probably, 50 miles from any road or anything. You drive to basically the most remote road to get to the plane, to get to where we were. So we figured, hey, we'll get this guy. We'll leave a day or two early. That'll give us some time on the road. I had to be back for work and everything else. And the captain was delayed. We had it was one of those atmospheric rivers or whatever going on at the time, and he was stuck. And so, it took a while to get everything out, and him to us, and then it took us a while to get out. The flight out of our camp was a little bit rough. Now I'm not a big flying guy, and so bush planes and all that, I'm not the part of the trip I was looking forward to. And on the way back, I think, how did it work? It was our ground speed was 50 miles an hour and our air speed was 150 or something like that because we're against the wind.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know how that worked. And it almost happened where they dropped me and the camera guy off and they were going to go back and get the load of moose. And it almost happened where they couldn't do that third trip. So I was at that point, I'm what am I going to do now? My whole moose is there. I'm here. Yeah. But we ended up getting it all out and, loaded in the truck and everything else. So fantastic trip. Actually, one side story, I tell this quite a bit to friends. The last night we're there and I was kind of bummed. We didn't see any, I wanted to see a grizzly, or is it brown bear there, whatever. And so we have one wall tent that we kind of just hang out in. We cook food, and me and the two guides and the other hunter there just hanging out, and just we're all happy. Everybody's got a moose down, and we've done what we had to do. The camera guy's like, hey, his name is Jordan. He's like, Jordan's like, I gotta, put one of those time lapse thing camera, because he's filming. This is a whole film. It's out on the internet if anybody's listening and want to watch. But he wants to do that to show, I don't know, passage of time or whatever for the film. So he goes out, and like we hear him kind of like muffled. You could hear bear, 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 bear as he gets louder.
Oh
It's
my
closer
goodness.
and closer. He had walked out, turned, and he walked out to the river or the creek technically where we were staying, and he was going to put this on the creek bed. And as he gets out of the trail and turns right around, he sees like 10 feet away, like the rump of a bear, like
Oh
a
my
big
goodness.
grizzly bear right there. And so like it was all chaos. Everybody's grabbing guns, and we're going out there to see, like, get this bear out of camp and whatever else. And yeah, it took off. Like, I think he scared it as much as it scared him. But I was like, that was the big excitement, like the last night excitement type of
Last
deal.
night, there's your
Um,
grizzly encounter. Wow, that's
he was
cool.
close to it, man. He was shook up a little bit. That was pretty intense, I think.
Yeah, I I've had a couple experiences with black bear and have enjoyed those experiences. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready for big boys. So I'm glad you enjoyed
you're
it. Yeah,
different, man.
I would definitely be shitting myself. I would be
Yeah,
done.
that's right. I was anyways. I don't know. I was shitting myself all week, but that's totally different. Actually, funny story about that too. One more, and we'll keep moving. But we spent the whole we spent the whole week drinking out of a creek. Like this creek is running, and it's got a side, something that feeds into it, and that's fresh water. So we're scooping there. And I think, and I don't exactly know when Jordan, our camera guy, got the wrong water,
Oops.
but we get the day we are flying out. He's like, man, I got like cold last night. I feel like just rough. He's pale looking. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. We got to keep moving. I'll drive for a while. And sure enough, he had the beaver fever, and we stopped quite a few times in the ride home to
Oh
change
no.
his pants and to stop at the worst dude. I felt so bad for him. He was miserable. But like I said, trooper, tough
Yeah.
champ. Like he did well considering. So 50 hours of beaver fever driving. Like, I mean, me and him are close now after something like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely good buddies now after an ordeal like that. Not only having it, but then being like, you don't. He doesn't want to hang up the rest of the trip, but at the same time, like,
No.
dude, this is it. There's no way to control that, and it just takes one sip of
Oh,
tainted water, and you're done. You're just
he
done.
was he was not good. Not in a, not right.
So we get the moose to the truck. It's gone on the plane, gone to the airport, got it to the truck. How is
Yeah.
that? How's that preparation? Like we were just talking a little bit ago, like when you got it to camp, and um,
Yeah.
even in the field, you're boning it out. You're getting to the point now where you're trying to strip off as much weight as possible. So like
Yeah.
pelt totally off. Um,
Totally gone.
you're going into meat bags. I'm thinking you're going into cloth bags, or did
Yeah.
you have a different route that you were going to be stacking them in this freezer?
I brought meat bags. They had grain sacks that they liked.
Mm.
And the idea was, I mean, we kept it hung up for a couple days, and it was in the 50s, but you keep it in the shade, maybe, just making sure flies aren't on it, because like even the outside of these grain sacks, there are so many flies that just show up out of nowhere, and I mean, they immediately lay eggs on the outside of these sacks, and thankfully it's tightened enough, it didn't have any issue with the meat at all, but that's kind of the deal. Clean it as much as possible. I spent so much time cleaning the head, the skull, because getting across the crossing in Portal, North Dakota, I was very concerned. Like,
Mm.
I heard a lot of people like, "Oh, you're never gonna make it. It's gonna be a huge thing to get across the border." So I went in like, "Holy cow! I'm not taking chances. I got it."
Yep.
You clean it. You have to get it checked by a guy in British Columbia. I don't remember what it's called. It's like a mandatory check where they look at your skull and they just take the age and whatever else. So did that and just kind of stressing out about it. But so I spent a lot of time cleaning that skull out. So it was my hope was it was just good to go on the way home. And so yeah, doing that, getting all the bones out and putting in those grain sacks, and I wanted it to be as like structureless as possible, those bags, so that I could set them in the freezer and they could just fill up that whole space.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of it. Just like how do we make it that? And so we did that. We got to the truck and ended up I couldn't take two of the front shoulders back with me. I couldn't fit them in.
Okay.
And so I gave one to the guy that I was with, because I was like, aside from the tip and everything else you kind of do for a guide, I'm like, dude, like, he's big into cooking meat, and I'm like, he was awesome, such a fantastic guy, and like he put up with my questions for a whole week or 2 weeks, so gave him a shoulder, and then the bush pilot who got us out in that terrible weather, I was like, I'm looking to load it in, and like, I don't know that this is gonna fit, and he was standing there, and he's like, well, you could leave it back for me, and I looked at him, I was like, okay, so I left one with him and left. I was like, whatever, man. I can't bring it back with me. You didn't let me die, and like the part that I was most nervous about was flying. So yeah, we got the rest of it back in there. The tenderloins. That's what was our first meal, and the hard.
You guys have those
all chunks of meat.
Yeah. Do you have that at camp? Tenderloins at camp?
Yeah. Yeah. We ate some of the tenderloin, some of the part of the rump where it kind of goes. The guide really liked it. I don't remember what cut it was, but he says to him it's like similar cut to the tenderloin, and I was like, hey man, whatever you suggest, I'm going with. So
Sounds
we
good.
ate that. We had eaten quite a bit of grouse in the week, to keep us fed. Like we stumbled into a bunch of grouse and stuff, but eating that meal was pretty sweet. That was good.
That's awesome. Because then at that point, not only is it the salt and the pepper and the fact that you've got red meat, but, that's something you don't usually get in the backcountry. But at the same time, like the emotional weight that's the emotional
feel awesome.
seasoning that's on that. You just can't get enough of it. But at the same time, when you go to bed, you're exhausted, and you just had like this huge caloric intake, and now you're like, oh, I sleep like you slept like a baby that night, I assume.
Oh, that was a good night's sleep. It was just a weird night, because it's like you're in like it's such a high all day. You're all excited. It's like this is it. We did it. All the driving. We got it on film. We somehow had it on 2 cameras running when the moose came out. If you watch the film and everybody listening checks it out, like the camera guy did so well. Like he got me and he got separate footage of the moose getting shot. It was so much goodness, so much to be thankful for. It's like you're laying there, your mind's kind of racing a little bit. But definitely ended up sleeping pretty hard that night. And, like I said, once he was down, once that kind of got settled, I was ready to head home, see my girls, and, get on the road again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So all in all, getting this animal all the way across the North American continent back to Michigan, totally something you would do again. Or we're sitting right now with freezer full. I mean, shoot, you got that whole freezer just tucked full. I assume still now, but like this is how, if you're gonna do the biggest game, this is how you're gonna roll. This is how you're gonna roll with it.
I think so. I mean, dude, you get it all, and again, it's when I first was planning it, and I thankfully knew a guy who had done it, Christian, and had talked to him a bit, but it was still one of those things. It's like, is this crazy? Like, is this just crazy enough to work?
Yeah.
And so, like, on the way back, I remember thinking, like, all right, the big thing was getting across the border. Very concerned about that. That took no time. It was immediate. But then it's like, man, everything, you check it. The generator runs the whole time you're on the highway. You stop, you plug it into a hotel, and every night I'd lug the moose skull up into my hotel room because I couldn't fit it in the cab of the truck, and so you got to get it in there. You don't want anybody to steal it. So I'm like, spent a lot of time like trying to sneak around hotels, so like I wouldn't make a scene carrying this giant moose head with trash bags over the skull, and but I would do it again. And like I said, I got home, everything was frozen solid. I had no meat loss, none, other than what I left behind to the guys. But so I had hundreds of pounds of meat that I spent quite a bit of time processing or rough processing for, to do stuff with later. Canned a bunch of it, ground a bunch of it, got a bunch of steaks, and I'm actually in the process of kind of honing in on a like a sausage kind of making, bent that I'm
Ooh,
on. I got
there
like a
you
good
go.
recipe that I tried lamb casings the first time, and they're very fragile and like they don't have the pop. It was still delicious, and like I tried it with a deer I shot up in northern Michigan here, and it worked well. We literally ate the entire deer in 2 weeks. My family. It was like 2 meals a day was like some of the sausage. It was just good and it was easy. And so now I've kind of honed in on I'm going to try some pork casing, and I've
Mhm.
got kind of the spices that I like. And so I'll probably do just a crap load of brats and maybe patties out of them too. But yeah, like I said, I would highly recommend it. If you have a generator, you have a freezer, and you're able to stop at hotels. That's really nice. But one of the nights we didn't. We stopped on the side of the road, and it was cool enough where we just felt okay about it. But
Yeah.
if you can make that happen, man, it works pretty. At least it worked well for me. I don't know. I would definitely try it again. If I'm doing another moose hunt, which I probably won't for a good while, I'll do that same exact thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, the idea that you had set up, I've in my mind, I've like put together this idea of like a single axle trailer that has the 8 foot, uh, um, eight, yeah, the 8 foot chest freezer and these power stations that either run off solar or they're just big power banks. Like that was my envision. Like maybe I can use one of those, put some of the solar panels on top, but then like you said,
Yeah.
when we stop, you know, have the ability to pull out a cord and literally plug that thing into the wall just to keep that going, charge up everything again, and then do it the next day. So yeah, to hear that was your plan was literally a
Well, now you
generator
know,
and a
dude.
chest freezer.
Next year, you're set. Remember, I got that deposit
You
for
got
you.
that
Like,
deposit.
Newfoundland moose, man. They have more. They have more moose. The density of moose in Newfoundland is higher than anywhere else. It's not even a native animal to Newfoundland. Like, they bring it in. There's tons of them. You're gonna shoot one, right?
Oh
It's
wow.
like guaranteed. It's fairly inexpensive. I think it was moose. I think total. It's like, and that was I think with a camera guy like 7-8 grand total.
Okay.
Which again, if you're thinking about it, man, you get some of that. I hear something. Is that me that's ringing?
I think I heard.
Anyways,
Yeah, that was
sorry.
on name.
You think of it like the cost of like beef. I mean, it's like I usually get a part of a cow, half cow or something, and I supplement it with deer and whatever else shooting in a year. This year it was all. I'm literally only there's like a little bit of beef from my last year's cow that I didn't finish, but it's all otherwise moose. So you can take your dream, and I think we make it possible. It seems like a huntivore on the road. You could do. I would follow that, man. I would follow your
You'd be
recipes
all
and
in.
your whole trip.
Yeah.
I'd be in for that. So I'm just putting a plug for you, and I feel like your listeners they would probably support what I'm saying, and they would probably agree that I think this is what you need. It's the next evolution of Nick Otto and his Huntivore podcast.
I like it. I like it. I'm now I'm now nervous because man, it sounds so good. Like I got to do it. That's the
You
problem.
do.
Is I
It's
need to
it's
get on the
fun.
road. We'll see what the missus says because yeah, she'll be like, well, it'll be huntivores because you're gonna have to tilt those boys along with you.
That's right.
They're
Well,
game
that's
for
not the worst thing. Your boys will be better for it. The sooner you can get them out there, man, the better they'll be off. But very doable. And the meat's fantastic. Love it.
Yeah,
A lot of
that's the
fat.
next thing is the profile compared to a it, and I know it's going to be all nuanced. This is same
Yeah.
family. This is venison through and through. Do you
Hmm.
notice the nuances coming from British Columbia into Michigan? Do you notice hints of things that pop inside that muscle? Is it a little bit different of a texture, be it muscle fibers, and
Yeah.
is it all it all? I'm sure. I mean, it's delicious. It's absolutely incredible. But
It's
like,
it's got a,
got
it's
some
got a
nuance.
sprinkle of adventure in it. You can taste the
Yeah.
adventure that's sprinkled in the meat. I have the taste and the yeah, we'll just say the taste of like a Neanderthal. So I wouldn't call it a fine,
A refined
like a
palate, if you will. Yeah.
My palate, yeah, is not refined. Well, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, we'll say it's not a refined palate. I'm not a real discerning eater, but I will say it's definitely not as lean as venison, obviously, right? And the fat is, I think, good to eat. I saved it. Like I'm gonna cut it in with the burger. I cut it in with the burger, and it had big bricks of fat on it that I
Yeah.
kept for that purpose, and not so waxy in your teeth. How like venison kind of like coats your mouth, kind of.
Hmm.
It's between deer and beef. It's like in between if there's a range, where there's
Gotcha.
like your grass-fed beef and your deer. It's like
Right there in the
it's
middle.
definitely it's even between elk and beef. I would say even further closer. I would say I like it more than elk too. So I did kill it, and it was like a big adventure. So I mean, there's
Yeah,
probably some sort of bias in there. I probably will love it if it tastes like crap, but whatever. I also have
absolutely.
like so much of it that like I can't, even if it did taste bad, I almost couldn't admit it. I got a whole
Look
year
at
of
this
this
whole
stuff.
thing of
So
bringing it back. You're like, I gotta finish it. I gotta finish it whether I
I'll
like
take
it
it
or
back.
not.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, hey, to finish us out, you were just talking a little bit how you are going to end up making a bunch of sausage, that your family
yeah.
enjoys that sausage. Lay out a little bit of your season spread that you're going to be putting in your sausage or in your brats. What is your moose? What is your moose sausage going to be like? That'll end us out
Yeah.
for
Let
our.
me
Oh, he's looking it up
let me
right now.
find it. I've got it here somewhere. Um, how do I search? I actually do weirdly. I've been using it in a weird way to like collect my thoughts and the things that I write for work and for the Fair Chase. Weirdly on Chat GPT. So I'll like throw stuff in there. I'll like save it there. I'll go back and I'll make things. Oh, I know where I have my full recipe actually. And so like what I've got is so I would do venison or moose or deer, whatever venison, pork fat. What I did my first time around, which worked really well, is I had really fat bacon, really fatty bacon,
Hmm.
rendered all the fat out of it, and used that to kind of cut into the brats as well, which
Oh,
was
okay.
again it was a test run on deer, but it was kind of with moose in mind. Some salt. I did white pepper, nutmeg, ginger, coriander, caraway, and then those kind of casings that I had, and really that was it. So you run it through a coarse grinder, you mix your fat in, your seasoning and whatever, do a fine grinder, and then you put it all through, and you throw it into brat links. And let me tell you, once you see how brat's made, once you see how the sausage is made, all you want to do is keep making sausage. So, like, I
Oh yeah.
liked it. I was all about it. Just to quote the late great Dwight Schrute, once you see how the sausage is made, all you want to do is make more. So, it went well. It was really easy. It was very like up into that point that was kind of a daunting. I'd never tried sausage before. I thought there was way more to it somehow, and I don't know why.
Yes. Well,
But again, like,
it's just like barbecuing. We add so many extra steps. We add so many things
yeah,
that you have to get right just to make ourselves feel better. Like I am a good barbecuer
yeah,
because
yeah.
and then it's like all this other made up stuff. Same thing with sausage making. Like, oh, but you got to get, if your percentage is off by a half
Yes.
percent, throw it out. It's no good. But you're right. They've been making sausage for hundreds of years. Yeah, it can't be rocket science.
My first batch was not fatty enough. I needed to put more fat in, and so I've kind of built out what I believe to be a better ratio of pork fat. I just picked up a ton of leaf lard from the farmers market here in Grand Rapids, and again, yeah, we'll keep testing with it. But again, like we did this whole deer into sausage, and we ran out of links, so we just started making them into patties and just froze them.
Yeah.
Thinking I'd have them all year. And then it was like, oh, we got this deer in the upstairs freezer, not like in our house, not in the garage. It's like we just kept eating. It's like, oh, it's right there. We'll just grab another one. Oh, we'll have this for dinner. And so, like, again, 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, you make it for dinner, and then it's leftovers for lunch the next day, and then you realize I've eaten a whole deer so fast, and that's what I plan on. So, anyways, yeah, we're doing more brats, and I'm gonna try that pork casing. What do you like for casing?
I've done the lamb for like snack sticks. I tried it for
Yeah.
hot dogs. You're right. You got to be. I mean, there are some nuances. You got to be careful with your temps. One batch I did with a synthetic casing, with a collagen casing,
Yeah.
and I think I let my mix get a little too uh, warm because it was a real mealy, real fine.
Oh, really?
Versus when I did with the natural casing, I did have the snap, but like being
Yeah,
from a
that's
lamb
what you
casing,
want.
like you mentioned, yeah, being in a lamb casing, it is a little more fragile. It is a little bit more thinner than the pork sausage. The pork is going to get you that better snap that you're going to
I
want from
like the
that. So
snap, and I felt like the collagen that just seemed un-American for some reason. Like a synthetic casing, I need some the guts of some animal to be my
yeah,
casing. That's what I felt like for my first try. You know,
yep.
I found
I've
out they
done
call it bung,
synthetics.
beef bung, bung.
Yeah, beef bung is then that's like your
I
brat
thought bung
size.
was
That's your
something
big one.
totally different. I'm like, I called it a bung hole, as a kid. Like
Yes.
you got a dirty
Well,
bung
because
hole, and
the
so
bung is
I
like
saw that. I'm
the
like, wait a
large
minute, what?
intestine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's the large intestine at that point, and they got a lot of it. That is a big animal. They work much slower than what we are. So yeah, on the other side of that bung hole you were talking about, there's your bung.
There's your see. These are the things, and I don't know why. As I was doing this, I didn't message you. It's a huge chop on my part. I've like stumbled through it like an idiot. I probably could have saved some heartache just by shooting you a text and getting some pointers.
Well, hey, now you know it on your own. We all got to learn it.
Yeah.
We all got to get our hard knocks someplace. So
Well, I'll never forget one of the first times you and I ever like. I mean, we saw each other at an archery shoot, but you came over. We did a podcast in person with you and me and Joe and Jared. Right before
yes,
Joe was even on the team, it was actually you were there at the early stages where we were wooing him to join our team, and not really, but he was there, and you came with a charcuterie board of stuff like you made, and I was like
yeah.
blown away. I'm like, this is the coolest thing.
I wasn't. I tell you what, when I got invited to an in person podcast, yes, I was a little like, shoot, what do I bring? Like, what is it like? I
Nailed
feel like
it.
it's a party, and so yeah, you bring a charcuterie board, you bring the hot dogs out of venison, you bring pastrami. I had jerky, and I think I made a smoked slaw or a smoked
Yeah.
chutney to go on top of the hot dog. So
Ooh,
I was
I
like,
love
you
chutney,
know what?
man.
That's what I'm going with. We're going full sell.
You know what? We did that and we shot our recurves, which was fun.
Absolutely. You just
Yeah.
posted that you had a reel on Instagram. Um, this guy like freaking out on Dr. Phil about shooting a spike with a recurve. Is did you did you end up getting anything with your recurve this year, or were you busy
Well,
at
so
everywhere else?
I want to preface it to say that I don't do memes. I was actually in our team anti memes. I was like, dude, let's class it up a bit. We don't want to be a meme site, it's not us. But, I'm not the only one here. Everybody's got different creative ideas, and so we've done it. And actually, they always turn out great, and they're a very high engagement and whatever else, things that are
Mhm.
good. So that one, though, was mine. Joe had sent me it, and it was about a fly fisher catching, like a 3-inch, brook trout, whatever, on a fly. And I was like, oh, that's a classic, like,
Yes.
recurve post. So it was one I can actually take credit for, and usually I can. I didn't even take my recurve out this year. I have a friend who wanted to borrow it, and I haven't seen it since. So I feel like it's been a hunting. The recurve has been out,
It's been
just
out,
not in my hands.
just not in
Yeah.
yours.
Tyler, a mutual friend of ours, he's got one of my old ones too. A longbow that I had. What is it? It's a Michigan company. Shoot, Great Northern
Yeah.
Fireball, I think it was. Anyways, it's a sweet, beautiful, beautiful bow. So I think he's got one too. But they're out there. I didn't have one in hand. I was just with the compound this year, but did pretty well with that. So can't complain.
Well, good deal. Good deal. Well, James, this has been an awesome hour. Where can my folks find the moose video? Where can my folks again tune in to the Fair Chase podcast? Where can we talk more with you and your co-host Jared on just all things Fair Chase?
Yeah. So the moose hunt is on WTA Worldwide Trophy Adventures YouTube. But what all you have to do is if you search Blazing Paddles, like paddle like you're paddling a boat, or the moose paddles,
Oh, the
Blazing
moose
Paddles or
paddles.
Blazing Paddle Moose, yeah, ties into part of the film. I'll let people who will watch it figure out what that means, but you can find it there. You'll see me in front of a moose with a big smile on my face. We do the fair chase. So if you type in, well, I'll test it here, the fair chase. Yeah, that's the first one. The first thing that comes up is our website. If you look up any social media platform, I think we're like on LinkedIn, even, TikTok, things that I don't really touch, but it's there. We're everywhere. We're mostly active on Instagram. So if you have questions or just want to hang out or talk about hunting or whatever, we really just love hunting and talking about it and doing it and being around it. So we will respond to basically anybody. We will talk to anybody. Like I said, we'd love to do it. We're happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. Big fan of the stuff you do, and just love following kind of and learning from what you're up to.
Awesome. Well, thanks, James. I'm going to send our listeners on out, so make sure you hold on there. Don't go anywhere. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this epic tale, that we've got a chance to just ride along with James as he's talked about not only bringing down a moose, this huge mammoth animal, but then he brought it home. He brought it to Michigan and kept as much meat as possible. If we're truly out there to make sure that as hunters that we're sustaining ourselves with our harvest, we got to do the tough things. We got to be creative. Modern hunting is an oxymoron. It is part of us trying to relive history, but at the same time, we've got these new modern problems, be it distance, be it tags, be it regulations that we now have to navigate as well. And so to hear that you can bring a moose all the way home, that is so encouraging. As someone who really wants to be able to glean as much from my harvest, if I'm going to put the hard work in, and if I'm going to do just service to that animal, I got to bring it all the way back to my freezer so it can be on my plates. So, hey, hats off to Fair Chase, hats off to James in making that happen. So, folks, whether you're planning out your own cross continental adventure, or whether it's just dragging it from the backyard and dragging it from your back 40, make sure that the knife that you're using is very sharp.